Oleksandr Musienko is a military and political expert, political and legal advisor, and head of the Center for Military Law Research. He is a United24 Media ambassador and hosts his own very popular military analytical channel on YouTube in the Ukrainian language. Welcome to Silicon Curtain. Please like, subscribe, share the channel around, and definitely add a comment, as it helps new people discover the extraordinary guests and speakers that we feature. Please do also check out the validated Ukrainian charities that appear in the description of the video. It's incredibly important to help Ukrainians resist Russian aggression at this time. Please also do consider supporting Oleksandr. Check out his channel. He does produce some videos in English language. Also, if you want to support us, buy me a coffee, buy Alexandra one as well. That will really help to support the work we do. Also, check out United24 Media through the links we provide here. They put out extraordinary content which helps to understand the complex situation in Ukraine at the present time. And I'm delighted that Oleksandr can join us on the channel for the second time.
Hello, and thank you for having me, and thank you for your for your important, really important work for informing what's happening right now in Ukraine, about everything what's happening, and about your great work, and also to United24 initiative. And please also donate on different initiatives today, especially for hospital where have been children, so that's really important. So thank you for having me, Jonathan, and thank you for your great work that you are doing for us and you are doing for Ukraine, and for stopping these crimes and this Russian aggression.
Well, it's never seemed more important than it is today to jump on and talk about what's happened, first of all, but of course the implications of it. Let's start with the strikes that happened in the early morning today, and of course through the day, rescue operations have been unfolding. And as we look through Twitter, as we look through various platforms, there are useful idiots, agents, assets, but there are also people who just come up and, I would say, almost unconsciously create excuses for the aggressor. Oh, it was probably air defense fragments that caused this damage. Oh, they probably didn't mean to hit a maternity ward and a children's cancer hospital. I would argue that there is nothing accidental about this. It's entirely intentional, from the locations to the impact, the timing. But could you describe in your own words what's happened and what your view is on the situation?
Well, you know that Russians did against missile attack against Ukrainian cities today, and against civil objects, civil houses and hospitals, power, electricity grids, and so on. They did it not the first time, unfortunately, because they did it before, previously. I just need to remember they did it the same in Dnipro hospital, against Kharkiv hospitals, hospitals in Donetsk region, against train stations where have been a lot of civilians, and so on. So unfortunately, this is the same crimes of Russians. But what we saw today, we can see, and all over the world, you can see evidences how it used to be, because now we have photos and videos which could show how Russians strike directly to the hospital. They knew that this house, that this is a hospital, one of the biggest hospitals in the central of Europe. So they did it directly. They knew what they did, and they knew what they planning. And we can see that now we see the evidences, and I think that these evidences will be show and will be on the screens during the during the meeting in the United Nations, where Russian, unfortunately, now leading in the United Nations. So I think that all people around the world will see these evidences of Russian attacks against hospital where been children in Kyiv. Also today we saw strike against civil objects in Kryvyi Rih and also in Dnipro and also in Donetsk region. So Russians used a lot of different types of missiles, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles. They've been using their aviation, their military jets, and they've been using Kinjal missiles, air ballistic missiles, Iskander missiles, and so on. Different types. And now I think that these evidences of Russian terror will see everyone around the world. And I just want to, you know, that today I remember how Israel missiles, yes, been striking some objects in Gaza Strip. So I remember how people were reacting for this. People moved to the streets. They've been really unhappy of this, and they accused Israel for this. But Israel, I just want to remind Israel been not aggressor. Israel just been trying to defend against terrorists from Hamas groups. But Ukraine here also not an aggressor. Ukraine protected and trying to defend, and we can see Russian aggression. So I expect that people around the world will support Ukrainians, and will accuse Russians for these crimes, and will also address to their governments, to their parliaments, and to their leaders of voice of public, just to accuse Russians and just to pressure on Russians and just to help to Ukraine. Because now we know what we need to have just to stop this terrorist attack in Ukraine. We need to have more air defense systems and missiles for them. Second, we need to have more faster F-16 warplanes here. But it's very important to understand that we need to have them not only like a planes. We need to have them with the missiles, which we can use against Russian military objects on their entire territories. It's also very important. Just need to understand that if we will have an opportunity to strike against military airfield in Angeles city in Saratov Oblast, we can just to destroy their opportunity, their base, where they repairing this strategic aviation, such as Tu-160 and Tu-95, and that will be very important. So, and the third point, that we need to have more pressure on Russia and more pressure and new sanctions, because unfortunately now we can see that Russians continue using some technologies and some items, some components from and some parts from the Western produced countries. So that's very important to stop this. That's we know what we need to have, and we see that Ukrainian air defense systems today destroyed 30 from 38 missiles which Russians launched during this attack. But unfortunately, we saw attack on a hospital, and unfortunately, we have people who've been killed. Unfortunately, we cannot protect them because of Russia's terrorist attack and because of we do not have enough air defense systems still.
Let's dig into this though, because Russia's actions rarely happen for random reasons. Timing, dates, coincidences, these are important things. And this strike against a civilian object, two civilian objects, in fact, in Kyiv and, as you said, others around the country. But the real, the really impactful images are coming out of Kyiv today. It is not accidental, either the location, I think, of this, but what's the significance of the timing? Because we've just had Viktor Orban visit Kyiv, then he's visited Moscow, now he's in China. Is it coincidental that this happens exactly as Orban touches down on the territory of China? Is it accidental that this has happened just before the NATO summit? What might also be the implications, the pressure of this? What's Russia intending as its message to world leaders? And what message are they actually going to take out of it? And can we expect any actions from the West, any punitive actions to show Russia that this uncivilized behavior cannot be allowed to pass?
Well, I think that that was really directly attack and with aspirations, because Russians knew what's going to happen during this week. They knew about NATO summit and so on. And by the way, very interesting what Prime Minister of India will state it about this, Modi, because he visited Moscow during this day, during this terrorist attack, Russian terrorist attack against Ukraine. I think that he doesn't looks like very happy because of this, because he was during this day in Moscow. And so we will see what will be the reaction. And also, you noticed about NATO summit clearly. I think that why Russians did it before NATO summit, because they want to show that, look, we are ready and we are prepared for escalation. We are ready and we could continue really open directly terrorist attack. Of course, they will say that, look, no one's from civilians, no children been there in hospital. Some NATO instructors with Ukrainian soldiers been there and so on. But we saw these pictures, we saw a lot of children there. So of course that they are lying in this point. But I think that they want to show that Putin prepares for escalation. He ready to do this. He wants to show really pressure, and he wants to show that, look, I can go further, and what NATO members, what NATO countries could do with me. What you're gonna do with me? You cannot do anything, because I can attack a hospital in Kyiv, and everything is fine. And you cannot do anything with me. I can destroy Aleppo in Syria. I can destroy Ukrainian cities. I can destroy cities elsewhere. And the world just will be watching and saying, oh my God, what he is doing, we are not supporting him. We are against his policy, but we cannot do anything. So I think that NATO need to show the reaction, NATO countries. I'm not speaking like from the NATO as an organization, because I understand that probably, unfortunately, even now, we probably do not get the unity because of Hungary and Slovakia, because of their position just to find the way of peace negotiations with Russia and so on. By the way, I just want to remind that Fico, Prime Minister of Slovakia, he supported Orban for his visit to Moscow. And he told that, look, he did it well. Great job. You need to go to Moscow. You need to speak with Putin and find the way to peace negotiations. So that's why I'm talking about some NATO countries, some countries which are members of NATO, and they can move further in supporting Ukraine. Of course, United States, of course, United Kingdom. I hope that Nordic countries, Scandinavian countries, Germany, France, they need to do more, and they need to show unity, and they need to show power, they need to show readiness of supporting Ukraine in this. Because interesting situation right now in Eastern Europe also. Because look, first in history, in the modern history, Chinese military, members of Chinese army on the military exercise in Belarus near NATO borders. They are right now. I mean that China also observing this situation, and China also trying to check the reactions of NATO and NATO countries. So China, I suppose they, like lighting back in Russia, not probably like indirectly, but they are backing them. And they are trying to show also, they are trying to check the reaction, what's gonna be. So I think that Western countries need to show a strong reaction and strong support of Ukraine. They need to do something like they used to do when United States, France, UK allowed Ukraine to strike against Russian military objects in Belgorod and Kursk Oblast. So just we need to do more today. And also, I understood that they just wanted, to do something during this summit, like a big scandal, because what they wanted to show, they understand that probably Ukrainian president could be with emotions because of this situation. And of course, because everyone feeling this emotion, that's a pain, that's also fury, we understand this, and that's also, just the willingness to continue fighting and just to defend our people and our country. So they just want to see the high level of these emotions, and just a scandal during NATO summit when Ukrainians will say that, look, you are not supporting us enough in this situation, in this hard situation, we need to have more, we deserve more, and so on, and will be scandal in this. So that's why, because of these 2 points, I think they did it. And also, you noticed about Orban. That's also very important to understand that, look, Orban been visited Kyiv, Moscow, and Berlin. He didn't say anything to Brussels or Washington, D.C. First to Moscow and Berlin. So he been choosing the side of this. Of course, I think that he will meet with Trump during his visit to United States. I think he will. He will try to find a way just to say that, look, I'm trying to do something with peace negotiations and so on. So that's also the point. That's also show how China and Russia wants to find the way to trying to move they and implement their peace formula. So I think that also Western world need to show strong support for Ukraine and strong support for Ukrainian peace initiatives, not just for Chinese, because that's really that's really disaster.
And let's turn to the nuclear threats, because whenever Russia is showing weakness on the battlefield, whenever it has very little to, to cheer its propagandists, it will start threatening the use of nuclear weapons. But behind the scenes, there is quite a lot of stuff going on. There has been an uptick in threats, but also we see Belarus being armed with nuclear weapons, and trying to create the illusion that Belarus is a separate entity, is a country with agency, and has its own nuclear deterrent, whereas we suspect that it's entirely a puppet. This is an image that Putin has created, but it's a way perhaps he could use those. What do you think is going on with nuclear weapons here? Is this all empty or hollow threats? Or at some point, is Putin going to make a calculus that he'll get away with some kind of nuclear escalation without penalties from China? And there is quite a terrifying piece of research from the Levada Center that came out earlier in the week, and it suggests that more and more Russians are moving. I mean, when this polling was done last year, a huge majority of Russians were decisively against the idea of using any kind of nuclear weapons. It seems that that is changing. Whether that is changing organically or whether that result is falsified or whether it's the constant pressure of Russian propaganda, it seems that more and more Russians are thinking that a nuclear strike for them would be one way to, inverted commas, end the war in Ukraine.
Well, you know that this war and this Russian aggression show very interesting point. As I can say that, look, nuclear weapons still important, of course, still important, and that's the real threat and the real instrument of deterrence. But now I just want to say that really this is an instrument of deterrence, and does it really works? Because look, what Ukrainian armed forces been showing right now, and what Ukrainians with this resistance showed, that probably that's not so scary as someone thinking about Russian nuclear weapons and arsenal. Why? I remember a lot of pieces, a lot of papers, a lot of articles about Russian nuclear threats. And of course, I agree that the threat probably is real in some points, of course. But I remember this, you know, that Russians probably from 2022, Russians probably could use nuclear weapons. Russians will do this. Russians do this if Ukrainian armed forces will do something against Crimea, if they will strike in there. They will do this if Ukrainian forces will strike some objects on Russian territory, and so on and so on and so on. A lot of points like this. But what we can see right now, I just want to remind about Medvedev, former president. Now he is in the Council of Defense and Security of Russia. And he wrote a lot and he stated a lot. He suggested that, look, Russians will use and could use nuclear weapons if Ukrainian forces will strike on some objects in Crimea. Ukrainians did a lot of successful attacks against Russians' military ships, against their air defense systems, and so on, and nothing happened. Then they're also been trying to fear us and just to show that they will do something if Ukrainians will attack objects on Russian territory. Ukrainians also did a lot of successful attacks against different objects, against air defense systems, against military factories, and so on Russian territory. Nothing happened. So I mean that, look, if we are talking about nuclear arsenal, that's also the main point in the deterrence, the readiness to use this. And when this readiness could be, when they can do this. Because look, they also, I think they understand that they, if will do this, reaction of the world gonna be. And if Western countries will not use nuclear weapons, I think that they will use just ordinary weapons, a lot of weapons just to destroy their military bases on occupied Crimea, on Ukrainian occupied territories, in maybe in Belarus also. So that's also, I think Russians, they understand. And so I want to say that first, in general, that probably we will be thinking about the doctrine of deterrence in other way after this war, because we need to answer on the question, really this deterrence working right now? Because we can see that we can attack objects on the territory of Russia which has nuclear weapons, and we understand this, but we did these attacks, and we didn't be afraid because of this. So deterrence doesn't work in this situation, as we can see, and doesn't work in the situation. Other example, Iranians attacks against Israel. Also, they've been using a lot of air defense systems and planes just to destroy the missiles and drones. But Iran did it. And of course, they understand that Israel probably could have nuclear weapons, but they did it. They did this attack. So I mean that we need to understand that probably someone will be thinking, and people and think tanks around the world, politicians will be thinking how nuclear deterrence doctrine will be working further after Russian-Ukrainian war, after these examples, after Iranians' attacks against Israel and so on. And the next point, could Putin use the nuclear weapon? And can we see a risk of this? Yes, of course. We cannot say that, look, there are no risks that Russians will not be using these nuclear weapons. Of course, risks, we can see this risk. But I think that, and Ukrainian examples show that we can do some attacks against some objects and the Russians will do anything. So at least, just to strike in their forces, their bases, their tanks and ammunitions depot and so on, we can on the occupied territories and on the border with Ukraine, trying to weaken them. And I think if we are talking about that, look, if Russians will be closer to lose this war, I think just that Western countries and China and India just need to show to Russia that, look, you cannot use nuclear weapons because all these countries and all the world will be against you. You cannot do this. So I think that we can find an instrument and the way how to explain this for Russians. At least in 2022, American politicians and Chinese politicians, they've been trying to do this and they were successful because we had the risk that Russia could use nuclear weapons during those periods.
And if we stay on the subject of Russia's allies, there are very few of them, but there are some, and they can be named pretty much on the fingers of one hand. We've got North Korea, and Putin significantly visited North Korea. As we talked about in the last episode, he did not seem to be in a commanding position there. He seemed to be in some ways subservient to Kim Jong-un. It is now being reported that North Korean engineers and trainers will be on the territory of Ukraine. Is it likely that actually what we're going to see here is Ukrainian soldiers being added to the human meat waves? It may start at a couple of thousand, but could this grow substantially? And what are the risks and dangers of Korea, North Korea, one of the world's harshest autocracies? What's the implications of it getting more deeply involved in Putin's war?
Well, at least for this moment, we cannot see North Korean forces on the occupied territory. They are not there, but we know that North Koreans planning to do this. And I think that they will try to do this. They will try to show Russians they are supporting. And also, that's also about the, but I think that, there are two different waves how North Koreans will try to do this. Because first way, just to do this directly, open, so when they will just say that, look, we are sending our forces, engineer forces, for doing something not on the front line, but near the front line, and so on, doesn't matter. that will be North Korean forces, and they will be directly involved into the war against Ukraine, into the Russian war against Ukraine. And so that's the first way. The second way is that they can send a people, such as people of a goodwill. Like they will say that, look, these people they are like volunteers, military volunteers. They want to support Russians. They want to help with something and so on. And Russians will pay them for this and so on. So that could be the second way, not like just to hide the directly involvement to this war. So we will see which the way of North Korea will be chosen. But as I know, Russians asked them about this, and they've been talking about this. That look, maybe you will support. Also, by the way, they've been talking about this with Iranians a few months ago. That maybe Iranians also will send some forces. By the way, a lot of Russians recruits from former PMC Wagner group, they've been a lot of times in Iran, and they've been trying to find officers and soldiers from Afghanistan regular army, which just withdrawn from Afghanistan to Iran when Taliban became leading there and came to the power. So they are also, and they've been trying to recruiting them, and so they are always finding the way how to find soldiers, self-called volunteers, and so on, around the world. And I think that, of course, they will try to do this with North Koreans. So very interesting to observe the reaction from China in this way, because you know that if North Korea will do this, I'm almost confident that a lot of leaders around the world, a lot of politicians, journalists, media, they will write and they will ask, what's the reaction of China for this? What China thinking about this of directly involvement of North Korea? Are they supported them? Are they supported Kim in this? So China could be in difficult situation because of this. And so, but I didn't hear, at least right now, any statements, official statements from the Chinese authorities because of this. And that's also too strange. So we will see. At least right now, I can't say that we have North Koreans already here on the occupied Ukrainian territories, but I think that the chance that North Korea could send their own troops to support Russians is still, we can see this.
And let's turn to the supply of munitions. It, of course, will be interesting to see what the impact of these strikes today have on the speed and quantity of Western munitions, plus, of course, the red lines. And we've already talked about the lifting some of those red lines. But there was a story in the Kyiv Independent this week, or last week, sorry, and it very much aligns with some of the things that I've been hearing from people sort of privately, and that is that even though the 60 billion aid bill has been passed, even though there have been several subsequent aid packages, plus announcements of the the project to find artillery shells by the Czech Republic and other initiatives, it seems that these munitions are slow in reaching where they need to reach. Certain battalions are not getting the munitions they need. How much truth is there in this story? And what pressure should be applied to the partners of Ukraine to speed up the supply of munitions to ensure that Ukraine can adequately defend itself?
A lot of our partners, and I know this, a lot of officers, commanders, politicians, when you are talking to them about how much we need to have here and what kind of war in what kind of war we are. They're thinking that, look, we will supply to you several thousands, dozens thousands, and really appreciate, because it's really helpful for us. And everyone can go, a lot of journalists, a lot of correspondents from different Western media, they are traveling around the front line, and they can see and they can write stories about how Western weapons supporting and helping Ukraine right now. And believe me, they are really happy when they can see these examples, how they can help to free Ukrainians, to defend Ukrainians, to defend freedom and democracy right now. So, by the way, we can see this on examples, how a lot of politicians from United States, they've been really happy, you know, and self-confident when they show an example how that could be working, and how Ukrainians could strike Russians different military objects on on the Russian territory, and how this had a successful impact on the front line, on the near Kharkiv, because we stopped Russians' offensive operations there, and now Ukrainian forces trying to counterattack in there. So that's an example how it works. But unfortunately, we need to understand that we need to have more, because we are spending a lot of artillery shells. We are spending per day, per 24 hours, because Russians attacking us, our artillery working almost 24 hours, because when we have, of course, artillery shells, because that's about counter battery works. And also we are thinking that, look, we need to have reservists and reserve brigades. We are continuing mobilization right now, and process of mobilization continue better right now, because when we adopted a new bill how to do our mobilization process more better. So for these people, for these new brigades, which need to, first of all, they need to defend right now front line, because look, they need to rotate and to change brigades which been involved during the hard battles from the beginning of this period of Russian attacking and offensive operation from the October 2023 near Avdiivka. So we need to rotate them, we need to change them. They need to have a time, you know, just time to rest and so on, to see their families and other. So we need to change them, rotate. First point, first objection in this. Second objection, we need to continue creating and building reserve brigades, just to helping our forces right now and to stop Russian attacks on the Eastern front line. Third point, we need to have reservists, and they need to have weapons, ammunitions for probably counteroffensive actions in the future, counterattacking, just also for active defense, because we need to have some reservists, and they need to be prepared when we can see an opportunity to counter-strike, and we need to do this on the same line on the front line. So that's why we need to get Western weapons and ammunition a little bit, not a little bit, but more faster, I'm sorry, just for this, because of three objectives. And objectives right now, what we need to do, objectives, what we need to do tomorrow for the creation and building new brigades, and also what we're gonna do if we will have, or when we have opportunity to counter-attack. That's why we need to get weapons faster.
And there's been another interesting piece of news as well, and this is the replacement of Commander Sordel. And this is a story that didn't get an awful lot of press in the West, but is it part of a sort of interesting a changing of the guard? And does it highlight something that's actually incredibly important, that a new generation of military commanders, a very different doctrine to the sort of Soviet military doctrine, is taking over in the Ukrainian armed forces? That is where commanders have much more consideration not to waste their troops, not to treat them as expendable resources. Could you go into detail a little bit about what this story is and what it
Uh,
perhaps means?
well, you know, I can say that, of course, like in every army which are in war, we can have some, you know, some misunderstandings sometimes, or some problems, or also we can see different point of views from generations of our commanders, and that's also normal situation, I can say. We are not having right now crime accusation against Sodal, but what we did, we saw that, and our president and our supreme commander in chief, they saw that there are a lot of questions to the style of commandment by General Sodal. So that's why for just to trying to make some, you know, to do some in this situation better, and just trying to find the problems and find the way to solving these problems, at least during this time of investigations proceedings. President just decided to resign Sodal from his position of commander of the eastern front line of Ukrainian armed forces, and he changed him. And we will see in the future the results of investigation will show what's happened and about decisions and so on. So Ukrainian armed forces in this way open are open, of course, at least as they can, and Ukrainian authorities also. We are open with Ukrainian society, Ukrainian soldiers, commanders, and also with our Western partners. And we want to also trying to find the way how to make our army better, how to do more reforms, how to do with the more NATO standards. But also we need to understand that this is a war, real war. And sometimes, you know, during the war, something could happen. Not like because we can read ideal scenario in the books, or we can see in the movies, but real war could show some problems sometimes and decisions and so on. But at least we are trying to fix them. We are trying to understand, and Ukrainian armed forces and Ukrainian president also trying to hear what soldiers saying and what there could be unhappy because of whom, and so on in army. So I suppose that we will see the results of this investigation, and we will get more information, and I think that we will fix everything and just to find the way to make the conditions in our army better and better. We are interested in this because we understand that today it's very important to have highly moralized and with the highly moral armed forces. That's very important, that highly moral people just to continue protect our country, because that's in our hands with the help of our Western partners, of course, but in our hands the issue of protecting of us.
And the last question here, I think, focuses on what has been a tense week internationally. And for those who are very much aligned with wanting to see Ukrainian victory, we knew it was going to be a difficult period this year with numerous elections taking place. It was expected that the far right would take control in France, and Le Pen was making many statements that actually bear some similarity with Nigel Farage in the UK and with Trump in the US. That is, repeating narratives, I would say, that are friendly to the Kremlin's strategic intent, repeating essentially lies and sort of weaponized mythologies and narratives. What's interesting is, of course, that Maloney, we feared greatly when Maloney came in that she'd very much support the Kremlin line, but that didn't happen, and she turned out to be quite a strong voice in alliance with Ukraine. But the right has been defeated in France. Farage, even though he's now in Parliament, is no way near gaining power. So on balance, this seems to be quite a positive set of news for Ukraine. And the UK Defence Secretary, the new Defence Secretary, on only his second day in the job, appeared in Kyiv and gave an extremely, not just a strong speech, but specific deliverables. He came with items that could immediately be dispatched, physically sent to Ukraine to help support. So how important are these two big changes that have just happened?
You know, I need to say that's very important because Russians really disappointed, I think, because Putin thinks in this way that, look, we need to divide Europe, we need to divide how we can divide Europe. Of course, we need to think about far-right groups and parties which are against Brussels and against Washington, D.C. But they really looks like friendly to Moscow. And so of course, Russians did a huge job, just been trying to support early, of course, previously. We saw a lot of investigations and examples how far-right group, far-right party, Le Pen's party, been had connections and ties with Russians banks, and they been taking money and so on and so on. So they are really disappointed. And I think that in this case, really won Western world and Europe won, because that's really important to continue, find a way how to keep in unity. Because if Russians will try to divide it, I'm confident that Russians and Chinese will try to use it, because they're interested in divided Europe. They're interested in opinions against United States, anti-American opinions, anti-American moods. They're interested in pro-Russian moods. So I think that it's really important to understand that Europe continues supporting Ukraine. That's a really good sign for us, and elections in France shows this. Also, I'm really happy and really appreciate for the British government, and we saw this visit to Odessa. New Minister of Defense been with Ukrainian president in the hospital where Ukrainian soldiers been. So that's really important to see the signs of supporting. And I think that we are continue this cooperation and hope that after NATO summit, we can only strengthen it, our cooperation, and we can show, and we will have opportunity to show Russians their plans or faults, and they will be unhappy, and they will be unhappy because of this plan just to divide us. I think that we will keep unity, and that's really important.
Well, I think that's all the topics we've got time to cover today. Things are changing so incredibly quickly. I'm sure there will be many, many fresh topics for us to explore in our next conversation. But for now, I'm so glad you're able to join us, and of course, persevering, because people may have noticed it's dark where you are. You do have a functioning phone, but the lights are off, electricity's off. This is the life that you have to struggle with now in Kiev, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, but I can say that we can live without this, but we understand that we need to get victory and we need to protect. And I hope that we will have opportunity to protect our electricity stations, and situation will gonna be better. Everything gonna be better. Just too important to understand that we are continuing our fighting and we can live without electricity for some period, but the main goal for us, living without Russians, without their neo-empire ambitions, and to live in a free country, because we are fighting for our freedom. And of course, we have some problems with electricity, other problems, but I think we will fix it, and we will move further.
And so important, given that we see what Russia does in occupied territory. People need to understand it's so very important for the unoccupied parts of Ukraine to stay that way, and for the rule of law still to hold sway. But Oleksandr, thank you so much for coming on the channel. As I say, I strongly encourage people to check out your materials and your writings on the war. But for now, thank you so much for coming on Silicon Curtain.
Thank you very much for having me and for this conversation.